Have you ever noticed how some people say they want to retire, but every time retirement gets close, they come up with another reason not to do it? Maybe you've run the numbers more times than you can count. Maybe you've told yourself just one more year. And maybe you've convinced yourself you're being responsible, smart, or just cautious. But deep down, you know there's something else going on. Because this always isn't just about money. Sometimes the reason you haven't retired yet is not because you can't. It's because you still haven't given yourself permission to imagine a different life. I'm Michelle, and on my channel we talk about creating a peaceful, confident life after 50, especially if you're living alone, traveling solo, or navigating retirement. We spend so many years in work mode that we get very good at planning for income, but not very good at planning for freedom. We know how to chase a number and we know how to stay busy. We know how to keep going, but ask yourself what you actually want your life to look like in an ordinary week in retirement, and a lot of people go completely blank. If you don't know what you're retiring to, you will keep finding reasons not to leave what you're retiring from. A lot of people get trapped by the number. They'll tell themselves they need a certain amount before they can finally walk away. 1 million, 2 million, some magic number that will suddenly make them feel safe. But what I see happen over and over is this. They get close, and instead of feeling ready, they move the goalpost. Now they need a little more, then a little more after that. Then the market feels uncertain. Then inflation becomes the reason. Then it's healthcare. Then it's, I should probably wait until everything is just a little more secure. But a number by itself does not create peace. A number does not tell you how you want to live. And a number is not a vision. And that's the real problem. A lot of people are trying to calculate retirement without ever getting honest about the life that they actually want. Not the version financial media pushes, and not the version that social media glamorizes, and not the version that their coworkers talk about. Their real life, because when you get honest about that, the math can change very fast. Maybe your ideal retirement does not involve staying in the same big house with all the same expenses you had during your working years. Maybe it means downsizing, and maybe it means renting instead of owning. And maybe it means moving somewhere more walkable, more affordable, and more aligned with how you actually want to spend your time. Maybe it means you don't need 2 cars anymore. Maybe it means you stop funding a lifestyle that no longer fits the person you're becoming. And suddenly the number that once felt impossible starts looking very different. I think this is where a lot of people get stuck. They're planning for a retirement they don't even want because they've never stopped long enough to question it. They're still carrying the structure, the overhead, and the identity of their working life into a future they say they want to feel lighter. No wonder retirement keeps feeling out of reach. Then there's the perfection trap, and this one is huge. A lot of people are not waiting for retirement. They're waiting for perfect conditions. They want the markets in the right place, the house paid off, the pensions maxed out, the kids settled, and the economy stable, their confidence high and their fear gone. They want every possible variable tidied up with a bow before they can give themselves permission to leave. But life does not work like that. There's always something. There will always be one more reason to stay, one more uncertainty, and one more thing that feels unfinished. And after a while, you have to ask yourself a hard question. Am I truly being careful right now, or am I just scared? Fear can dress itself up as responsibility. It can sound very wise, practical, and mature, but sometimes it's just fear in a blazer. And the truth is, staying where you are is familiar. even if you're tired, burned out, or the job no longer fits you. It's still familiar. You know your role and your routine. You know how to function inside that world. Retirement asks you to step into something less structured. And for a lot of people, that feels more threatening than continuing to do something they're already exhausted by. That's why I think this conversation has to go deeper than spreadsheets. You also have to ask yourself whether your current life even reflects what you say you want. Does your home fit the next chapter? Does the city you live in support the kind of daily life you want in retirement? Does your neighborhood make it easy to do the things that you care about? Or are you staying in the same place simply because it's familiar? And that matters because sometimes what looks like a retirement problem is really a lifestyle mismatch. You're trying to force your future into a life that made sense for your working years, and it no longer fits. For some people, especially solo retirees, that shift can be everything. Selling a house that's too large, too expensive, or too tied to an old identity can unlock a completely different retirement picture. So can moving somewhere that supports your values better. So can letting go of the assumption that retirement has to look a certain way to count. Retirement does not have to mean never earning another dollar again. I think that idea keeps a lot of people stuck too. They think the only two options are full-time work or forever full-stop retirement forever. And there is so much room in the middle. You don't have to go from full grind to full shutdown. You can build a life that has freedom, flexibility, purpose, and a little income on the side if you'd like. That could mean part-time work, doing something that you actually enjoy. It could mean consulting a few hours a week. It could mean pet sitting, helping people organize, selling art, freelancing, working seasonally, starting a small business, or creating something online. It could mean doing work because you want to, not because you're trapped. And that's a completely different kind of life. And for a lot of people, that in-between version is the bridge they needed all along. Not full retirement as some giant cliff jump, but financial independence with choices. Enough to cover your needs, enough to breathe, enough to stop living at the mercy of a paycheck while still staying engaged in ways that feel meaningful. That's freedom too. For many people, the deepest issue is not the money, the house, or even the logistics. It's identity. Who are you without your job? Because for decades, your work has given structure to your day, meaning to your week, and a language to your identity. It's how you introduce yourself. It's how other people define you. It's often how you define yourself. And even if you're tired of it, it still gives shape to your life. So when retirement starts getting real, what scares people is not just the loss of income. It's the loss of that familiar version of themselves. Because retirement is not just leaving a job, it's stepping into a different relationship with yourself. It's finally having space to ask, what do I enjoy when nobody is assigning it to me? What matters to me when I'm not measuring my worth by my output? And what kind of days actually make me feel alive? That might be travel, it might be creativity, or it might be slower mornings, long walks, time with grandchildren, building community, volunteering, or exploring your own city, or starting something brand new at an age where the world thinks you're supposed to be winding down. But you do have to be willing to meet yourself there. And then there's health. This one really matters. A lot of people assume it's just time sitting there waiting for them. They tell themselves they'll retire in a couple more years and then finally start living the way they want. Then they'll travel, then they'll rest, and then they'll move their body more. Then they'll take care of themselves. Then they'll slow down. But what if the cost of waiting is higher than you think? Not just financially, but physically, emotionally, and mentally. Stress, burnout, years of putting yourself last, years of living on survival mode all have a cost. And we don't talk about the fact that the version of you who retires sooner may be very different from the version of you who keeps grinding for 5 more years. Those years your body is carrying the stress, years of your energy being drained, and years of postponing the life you say you want in exchange for a little more certainty that may never fully arrive anyway. Because yes, money matters. Of course it does. I'm not dismissing that. But money is not the only thing that belongs in the equation. Your peace, health, energy, joy, they all belong in the equation. The actual life you want to wake up to belongs in the equation. So if you've been telling yourself you can't retire yet, is it really money, or is it that you haven't clearly defined the life that you want? Is it perfectionism, fear, habit, identity? Or is it the discomfort of imagining yourself outside the structure that you've known for decades? You may be closer than you think. You may have more options than you think. But you're never going to see them clearly if you keep treating retirement like a math problem only, instead of a life design problem too. So maybe the question is not just, can I retire? Maybe the better question is, what would my life need to look like for me to finally feel ready to live it now? That's the question worth answering. And I'd love to hear from you in the comments. What do you think is the real reason so many people don't retire even when they say they want to? Thank you so much for watching.